I know I said that I would leave off commenting on Andrew Doyle's posts, um, but his recent one concerning Jason Arday, the phenomenal professor at Cambridge University, brought something to mind, and I saw something in a different perspective, which I think is worth considering. English society, less so possibly Welsh, Scottish and Northern Irish, has a deep undercurrent of caste as opposed to class. The two words are not synonymous, even though they are intertwined, a bit like the double helix in a way, and are affected by each other. I think affect is the right word because they change of themselves by that relationship and how it develops. A different view of the process of English society can, I think, enlighten quite a bit about what's going on now. From the Industrial Revolution, which could be from the late 17th century, we developed a society highly influenced by technology and discovery and the strange metamorphic creativity of invention. Now, what's odd is that things have changed in the last maybe 60 years as we deindustrialized. So during that process, I guess that extremes of caste that existed before the Industrial Revolution were watered down by the advent of greater class influence, class being more economic, although it does have associated with it various snobberies and beliefs and so on and so forth. Caste is more elemental, in as far as that it is arguably impossible in a single lifetime to change all caste. But class might be possible, even though the snobs will recoil a bit from a provincial or localized accent, which is normally associated with lower castes. It's hard, I think, for many people to accept that class is not the most significant socially divisive and defining factor in the United Kingdom, particularly in England. I think, as I say, less so in the Celtic nations, which have their own particular hang-ups. It's not a matter of innocence or guilt. Societies are different. And the United Kingdom is a sort of alliance of societies that somehow manages to square the circle in creating a multi-society nation, which on the face of it is borderline impossible. Multicultural, perhaps yes, but multi-society, as the word multi-societism in all its ugliness and impossibility indicates. So the situation is that Jason Arday seems to have had a meteoric rise in his career, featuring many very improbable things. He is apparently an astonishing athlete, an astonishing snooker player, and managed to recover from a state of what most people would consider total write-off educationally, to land up a professor at Cambridge University. His intellectual production is also questioned because his athletic feats are borderline impossible. They're certainly improbable, particularly the claim that he could run a marathon with a leg that had doubled in size because of some kind of injury. Not a singular one, might I say. More than one marathon. He's doing the best he can in this world, so I'm not going to blame him. It's very common for people to say someone who works the system is somehow guilty. Not really, no. I mean, yes, of course, if you're benefiting from a society totally, and then you start working the system, then I think that's pretty nasty. But no, he definitely did come from a world of caste, where he was considered, particularly in the United States, this is the interesting thing, in the United States, black people, I say in apostrophes because I hate the expression black to cover everyone from Chinese, Inuit, American Indian, Indian, and Central African, and all the different varieties of black cultures and lives in Africa. They're as great, if not greater, than European differences. You know, we may all have a white skin in Europe, but you compare maybe someone from a high Catholic background in Italy with a dour Protestant or Calvinist in Scotland. Yeah, the cultural difference is massive. And the skin colour, one's sort of possibly slightly coffee coloured, the other one is sort of white skin. You stand in the sun for 10 minutes and you get blistered by sundown. You know, these are different creatures. They're all lumped into one in a sort of crude way. And I think in the United States, when they talk about blacks, they're looking back to a time when they were considered outside caste as untouchable in the United States. And we've imported that to, as it were, paste it on the few, relatively few, certainly it was a few years ago, 20 years ago, relatively small percentage of the British population. Now, what I found interesting is, from my experience, is that I tried to leave my caste, and it was the controlling upper aristocratic caste. Now, I may have recounted a few weeks ago about a shooting party which I attended, because for years ago I was invited to join a shoot. I didn't have to pay for it. Some people get high teeth for that, to be a free gun in a shoot. The gun's not free. The expression gun means that you have a particular status and position enabling you to shoot pheasants in a highly regulated quasi-military custom. And I turned it down because I know there's a degree of hypocrisy here, but I hate crushing a spider. And the idea of pointing a gun up at a cock pheasant, you're not supposed to shoot hens, by the way, it's just the more pretty cock ones with their feathers. And it was beyond me, it was so cold-blooded. But the people do like shooting. It is almost their entire lives. Their social year rotates around that, even though the actual shooting season is well less than half a year. After all, you've got to let them recover and have chicks and replenish the stock before you have another go at them later on in the autumn come winter. Shooting is highly ritualistic. Some people say it's a bit like a sort of form of death cult. Anyway, I attended this shoot and I could see people I was brought up with, cousins, a brother or two. Now I'll say one thing. I regret the cost of leaving that world, but I had no choice, and I don't regret the fact I'd done it. But they looked at me as if somehow a foreigner was in a place that wasn't really very welcome. Almost anger in their eyes. The women weren't like that, they talked to me quite happily, but the men, yes. It's a very, very strange and interesting custom, and it is a caste activity. Very exclusive, very private, to the extent that you don't see anything on the television about shooting or anything like that. It just doesn't happen. It's just a strange backwater, seemingly backwater activity, but by God, a lot of people go shooting are very, very important. It's a sort of upper caste equivalent of golf for the caste, as you might say, below them. I don't believe in that literally, metaphorically, one on top of the other, like sort of a cake with different sort of layers of sponge or something. No, it's more sophisticated and subtle than that. So if you break caste, as I did, you are an outsider. And they will treat you as if you have some kind of dangerous, communicable, mental disease and stand back from you. You don't get invited to anything really, weddings. You might get an occasional invite, but not much. Or even possibly sometimes funerals. Certainly you don't get invited to a normal run-of-the-mill celebrations or anything like that, because you're considered dangerous. You stepped out of line. That is at the heart of the poison of English and to an extent British society. Now we've imported the American view of caste, but what we've done in the United Kingdom is slightly different. What we've done is in effect, they call it the Lanyard class. It's actually you could call it a border or barrier caste. They're the ones that sort of adopted the old caste system of the aristocracy. It's ironic really, because they loathed the aristocracy, and the aristocracy didn't like them very much, I can tell you. And these people are sort of pig in the middle people. They're the ones in the past who are always having to obey orders they loathe and dished out punishment or control to everyone else. Now the interesting thing is, I think, that the way to understand the US attitude to people they call blacks, particularly African Americans as they're called, is to treat them as if they're outside caste, untouchable. Untouchable goes to the extent that that very association is bad enough. Standing in the shadow of an untouchable is elementally a bit frightening for them. They're very scared of perfectly innocent children and well-meaning and intellectually bright, promising, again I hate using the expression, black people, because their fear is in their bones. It's not a class thing. A class thing is very different. A class is more economic, with, as I say, with certain snobberies, but caste is elemental. You would never, let me give an example. In the United Kingdom, or in England particularly, if, shall we say, the daughter of an accountant, pretty well-to-do accountant, maybe his father was an accountant, maybe they should work their way up, grandfather's working class and so on, but they developed caste over 2 or 3 generations, and they're now in the Lanyard or the barrier caste, I should say, easy to slip. And this daughter has 2 suitors. One, shall we say, is a trainee accountant, moderately intelligent, not much to go to town about. He will one day become a chartered accountant and make a reasonable living, afford maybe a detached house in the suburbs somewhere, and live a happy life and, have children and snuff it. And the other one is a young man who's just inherited, or is about to inherit, a haulage empire, general haulage, lorries, hundreds of them. The company's in a good condition, good state, cash rich, and things are looking good. In caste terms, the father of that girl would do his level best to point her towards a trainee accountant. Because haulage is a dirty business. It's a lower caste operation. It's not untouchable, but it's a lower caste. Untouchable to outside caste. That is sort of like the ground beneath your feet. They're morally worthless. They're not really properly human. Now, what we've done is I think that's the way the US controlling caste treated black people, and they're trying to get rid of that, and rightly so, because it's social poison. It's the most inhuman behaviour. Worse, people do it without even realising they're doing it, hence your unconscious racism and so on. It isn't that, it's caste. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a demonstration. Apart from me feeling that in a strange way from people I used to have played games with and was brought up with, who now consider me to be dangerous. And they certainly, philosophers, they consider to be extremely dangerous. And they've, over the last 70 years, done their level best to reduce philosophy to a laughing stock, word playing, and complete waste of space. I went through that mill, as you know. The first year I learnt a lot about the Minoans and the Socratics and all the way through Leibniz and so on and so forth. And they gradually weaned you off that. So in the third year, you should be fully paid up Wittgensteinian and think Strawson. You should read some of this stuff. It is unbelievable bullshit. Highly clever and educated, arcane, twisted, and nihilistic. It's complete rubbish. And once you've got to that stage, philosophy has effectively committed suicide. It's a nothing subject. Academic philosopher is an oxymoron. And these people many people have tenure, they're highly respected in apostrophes. That means within their caste they're considered wonderful. And the rest of the world looks on and thinks, have they lost their tiny little minds? The world's burning. We have incredibly important problems on our hands. The invasion of the Spanish enclaves and so on and so forth. The world is in a very fragile state, and these people are still dithering. They're not saying anything. Philosophers should be people who constantly attend to the foundations of civilization, mending them, improving them, giving different perspectives, helping people out of their confusion. Instead, they've become a waste of space, except they're not philosophers. They're academic, I don't know what you call them really, nihilists, dressed up with the word philosopher. A proper philosopher is someone who's willing to take the hits, willing to take people's anger, willing to accept that they're never going to make any money out of it, but feel the thrill, the real excitement of stumbling on new ideas, at least new to them, even though maybe they've all been thought about before. It's highly likely. The thing is, though, society and civilizations are littered with great minds who thought great things, but they were never discovered. And that's because the caste system found that they were disruptive. And that is the ultimate crime, rocking the boat. You do that and you're out. Or in my case, I threw myself out of the boat and swam in a sea of sharks, and for some reason none of them bit me. God knows why. I'm very lucky and very grateful. So, to the point, what we have in the United Kingdom is, as I say, a lanyard, or whatever you want to call it, caste. That is sort of MPs, most MPs, politicians generally. Again, there are great exceptions. Senior civil servants, senior lawyers, judges, these type of establishment figures, and quite a few of the great and the good in charge of private companies too, or I should say PLCs and private companies. These people don't rock the boat merchants. I know years ago when I ran a business that I was rocking a boat with Shropshire Council, big time, over the domiciliary care and the way that they were unwilling to see the real costs of what they were expecting small domiciliary agencies to do. They didn't even know at one point what a 0 hours contract was, which anyone who knows the domiciliary care business knows that was absolutely central to operations in those days. They didn't even know that we were paying the transport costs between calls were often 5, 6, 7 miles apart. In the Shropshire Hills, sheep outnumber humans radically. Their ignorance was catastrophic. Now, I'm sure they got better now because that was at least 10, 15 years ago. But the extent of ignorance was mind-blowing. And this is the thing about castes, is that they're not particularly curious about the rest of the world. Their entire universe is their caste. Some people call it a bubble. No, it's more than a bubble. It's a mental prison. And as in my case, in the upper caste, at that time it was aristocracy, albeit our family's only 3 generations. We made the money in cotton and cotton factories and all the smoky hell of Manchester. They don't know anything outside our caste, and they don't want to know, because if they do, they feel they're going to be dirtied by it, spiritually dirtied, and they might catch some of the poison, which will make them think differently, and then they will be considered diseased, mentally diseased by their peer group, and rejected. And they have nowhere to go, because other castes won't take them in, because they're going to think, this person was thrown out by our caste, we can't trust them, because we might have thrown them out too. Alternatively, if this person left their caste, well, they might leave us too. So why should we upset the rules of our lives and prejudices that make our lives in a way seemingly predictable and coherent, albeit in a difficult and irrational world? At least we know where we're going. You invite this person in, they're just going to cause upset. So no, let them stew in their own juice. They made their bed, they got to lie in it. Society's like that. English society particularly is cursed by caste. So let me extend this a bit. What's happened in the United Kingdom, where we imported woke from America, and particularly this their view that, which was correct, I think, that in the US the caste system went consigning black people to outside caste status, untouchable, was poisonous. So it came to this country. Now the problem is there weren't that huge number at the time. This is talking about 20, 25 years ago. Huge proportion of the population were what you might call African Americans. Well, I mean, obviously not for start, they're not in Africa, but you see the point. Now, what they did instead was being with caste contempt, they looked at the poorest white people, indigenous to the population, and said, they're in effect black in the American sense of the word. So what's happening is the prejudices which were rampant in the United States in the 50s and 60s and before against black people now apply in the United Kingdom to poor, working class and caste people. This begins to make sense, because it's very hard for people to understand why wealthy, haute bourgeois people in the UK, and they're mainly English, treat what seems to be their kith and kin, certainly people used to be from the same national tribe, I suppose you can call it that. Now suddenly they're treating them as if they're untouchable, unmentionable. Toby Robinson in the United States would be an angry black intellectual from the 1950s, or just an angry black man from the 1950s, who's felt, I'm tired of being treated like dirt. I think that's wrong. The English caste system has taken on the American attitude, but because it didn't have enough of this sort of people to hold in contempt, it found a useful way of redirecting caste contempt to those they considered to be untouchable, which is people who, in effect, were in the engine of the economy, the engine of society. The people literally pulling the levers of the machines from a day-to-day basis. Right down to people possibly making the nuts and bolts, getting their hands so dirty and covered with black that it took, with the cleaning materials of the time in the 50s, it took more than a couple of minutes to wipe that off. Every day. I had a sense of this, only a small one, because as a tourist in a way, because some of my background can never join that world. When I drove wagons, they call them wagons in the north, for a couple of years in Manchester in the late 70s, starting off in the winter discontent and onwards, I saw people, and I saw around me, there were no drivers. Oh no, might have been one or two. I saw hundreds of drivers who were over the age of 50 to 55. None. Because by that time, they were physically damaged, or simply the sheer noise of these vehicles, which was enormous. You could go in and think, I drove an AEC Mercury for a few days. I was an agency. It was carrying steel, six-wheeler. I don't know if it was a Mercury, but it had the same ergo cab on it. This was the late 70s, and it was old by then. They say it was the boss's wagon. Good brakes, strong engine. You know, the rest, don't worry about it. But the filth, the noise, it was so bad that when I got into the traffic office at the end of the day, before I went in, I would sit in the cab for maybe a couple of minutes, just to let my ears recover a bit. You would see people in the canteen, and later on when I became a sort of mini boss, I took this trainee around and said, it's a different company of course, and said, look, go on, drive over there, and walk towards him straight, and then deliberately go to his right ear and give him, say, could he check his notes and bring him over, or whatever. Now, I could see the guy, I knew him quite well anyway, looking at this trainee and thinking, oh yeah, another one. And as the guy stopped, just as this is my trainee, stopped about 3 yards before him, he sort of made a deliberate move to go to that ear. And the driver's face visibly softened. Yeah, it's quite dramatic. Now, unless you've been there, it's very hard to have the emotional understanding and humanity of people who do this sort of work. Today, it's in a way, it's just as bad, not so much physically, as the sheer stress. In my time, you didn't have booking in times, you just appeared and people took your stuff off the back of your wagon. Now you're within a couple of minutes late, you're screwed. Particularly if you're an owner driver. My God, that hurts. Come back tomorrow, driver. Well, if you're an owner driver, you've lost half of this income. And your fixed costs keep on rolling along, Park up overnight, curse and sweat and swear, come in the next morning, get it tipped. Times have changed. Yes, the cabs are lovely and you've got bunks and so on and so forth. You don't have to sleep on some damn parcel shelf at the back and behind your seats. That's all gone. That's good. But and often I slept in the trailer. Almost gassed myself once because we had a load of paintbrush handles taking to Ireland and taking them back to Ireland because they were rejects. And they were covered with this sort of chemical. So I got on the back out of kit and they didn't wake up because of fumes, People don't understand this sort of thing, And I was only a tourist really, but I had enough to have an inkling that these are human beings, and that stripped away the caste contempt which was in the culture that I was brought up in. Caste is a major aspect of culture. Class, yes, but less so. So understanding these things and the contradictions that glue society together, that glue people together, is vital. Now, here I am, a member of the Barrier Caste or Lanyard Caste, and I'm confronted by the fact that my colleagues have lauded a perfectly nice chap, highly intelligent most likely, who's been using the system. And the system is weak, because this guy's seen straight through them and he's played them like a violin. In a way, good on him, because he's doing what he can do to get on in the world, and he's revealing an institutional disaster, because this particular caste is willing to sacrifice almost everything to maintain solidarity. So much so that it is almost willing to see its extinction rather than accept that it has to listen, change and act rationally. It's a great contradiction, really. But as I keep on banging on, in intersubjective, contradiction can exist, and you can have incoherent and contradictory entities. So the Lanyard Caste, or I call it the barrier caste, has contradiction at its heart, but it still survives, or it will so far. But the funny thing is, or not funny, the tragic thing is that physical reality, or the reality of other nations bristling with weapons, whilst we're busily letting our armed forces go to nothing, are just dying to come in. The only thing that puts them off maybe is that the world's a complicated place, and they can't really estimate the risk properly of doing that. Things are too complicated. And Uncle Sam might think, no, we better really hit hard back. Because we're in a world of giants, China, Russia, and the US. And they like to keep it sort of fairly, not too much push and shove. And what do they have again if they walked into this wretched place? They have a country on its uppers. When the Normans conquered, in effect, a chunk of the United Kingdom, but in the end it came down to England, Wales and parts of Ireland. I don't think they managed to deal with Scotland very well. They benefited from an existing, highly efficient, well-established governmental arrangement from Saxons. So it's just a matter of wiping out the Saxon aristocracy and popping in Normans instead. They changed a lot too. They introduced mass serfdom. Yes, they abolished slavery, but the serfdom was more widespread. And guess who built all those castles? Exactly. It wasn't the Normans. You can go into country churches. There's one near here called St. Samson, St. Damien, and might be St. Samson, not certain. And you can see on the floor two tombstones dating from the, I think it's 12th, early 13th century, of Norman overlords. And my God, they look serious. Huge sword and shield. And the lady has one of those strange headdresses with sort of, like a sort of top hat with material flopping down like that. Fantastic. Can you imagine what Saxons with their little cottages, grass thatched round houses thought when these people came along? It must have been a hell on earth for them. And this, in effect, one caste was replaced by another. So it's quite simple if you have all the rest of the systems of governance and taxation in place. So conquest is made relatively easy. Now, the United Kingdom now is in a mess. The judiciary is intent on seemingly destroying itself. The police force, the same thing. And all in the name of caste solidarity. And they look upon large chunks of population with the same way Americans looked on black people up until at least the early middle 70s or later. So are blacks or whites? Certainly weird, isn't it? But you see, our whites consider other whites to be black. Complicated, isn't it? So we've inherited, or at least we've imported some to the US, and our caste system has adapted it to, as it were, in their own minds, justify their caste contempt for what were white untouchables. And they are, as it were, metaphorically is the wrong word, but they were de facto blacks, or are. Then the crumbling British economy becomes more sensible. Now, one of the odd things is you think, why don't they apply that to new arrivals who are overwhelmingly not white? I hate speaking in these terms because they're all humans. All human lives matter. Now, if I'd said that a few years ago, I'm sure I'd be accused of being a racist. But that's true. Anyway, the reason why is because one of the principles of caste is foreigners are considered a higher status than indigenous people underneath the bottom of the heap. So, for instance, my background, if I was to marry a member of the working class and caste, which oddly enough I've done, that's a real crime. She's my partner, I haven't married her, but yeah, for a long, long time. And they would really recoil at that, and they did. But if I was to marry, or maybe an American black in apostrophes, or a Persian princess, or what have you, that's considered much better, sort of tolerable, but not someone at the bottom of the heap, the untouchable in their own country. So caste is poisonous. Class is, you can get around that to a certain extent, and it gets confusing because they are intertwined. So, for instance, I am still treated by the few who don't know me, who come from my caste, as being one of them, even though economically I'm very much middle class, and not upper middle class, middle, different scene. So there you go. Jason Arday is working the system. People who yell and shout at him are hitting a wrong target. He's managed to milk it, and I don't blame him. If I was in his position, maybe I wouldn't do it, maybe I would. But the real problem that's really gluing up the works is the people who are intent on solidarity at any cost within their small background. They don't live in bubbles, they live in mental prisons. Walls 20, 30 feet high, and all they see in our little world is themselves. And they don't want to see outside. When I was on a railway train years ago, going to a dentist in Harley Street, those were the days. Mind you, dentistry's come a long time since. Sent from, we used to live in a leafy suburb, not a leafy part of Surrey, called Warbleston. Lovely place, commons to play on. It was fantastic. We were going up to London. I was with my siblings, and I used to see these rows of terraced houses wreathed in smoke from the steam engine, and had washing hanging outside. And I was curious. So much so that I went back to the area on my little bicycle. I must have been about 8 years old. We rode about 4 or 5 miles. You could do it in those days. And wandered around the streets. I was quite frightened, because here were these children running around like mad, having a good time, and they couldn't work me out at all. So I pedalled away pretty furiously. But my curiosity was strong enough to do that. My siblings on that train saw nothing. And they wouldn't want me now to say what I'm saying. Because maybe they were more sensible. Their lives had been slightly less difficult than mine. But I wouldn't trade it in a million years. I've been very lucky. So, Andrew Doyle prompted me to write this because he's written another excellent article. But I don't think he's got to the bottom of it. Because he seems perplexed, as most people are. But once you pin it down and understand this nature of mental prisons, whole groups, hundreds, even possibly even hundreds of thousands of people, all in one prison, And they're the people who happen to be in control of this country, maybe less, some subsection that you might say only about 10,000 of the great and the good, in this sort of, not a bubble, it's a prison, and thrashing around. They don't really know what's outside the walls, but they know whatever's outside the walls is liable to force them to start cooperating a different way, and would threaten the thing that holds them together, and they can't be having that. Don't think you could bring up children and so on and so forth. There's too much chaos. So they instead resort to a form of authoritarianism. Of course they can see what's going on outside there, but they have no emotional knowledge of those beyond their group. Not a scrap. Consequently, they have little compunction, certainly the bad ones in them, they're good and bad in all backgrounds, of being as vile as they like in the name of caste solidarity, or a stupid, sort of artificial stupidity, however highly educated and perceptive they are. Artificial stupidity trumps that in a caste arrangement, and that is what's applying with Jason Arday. He is revealing the extent of the stupidity consequent to caste priorities, and the overwhelming priority, as it is with the ideologically possessed, and many of them are, is survival of the very thing that enslaves them. And in the case of caste, it means preservation of a prison that makes them ignorant and care less of everyone else. There you go. Thank you again, Andrew Doyle. I think you're highlighting something, but you're highlighting a symptom rather than the cause, which is more fundamental. And I can be certain that if any of my siblings saw what I was saying now, they're not very pleased with me, which is a pity, because I love them. Bye for now.